Good evening, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff Lives. And we have a little echo going on. Not sure where that's coming from, but Andy behind the scenes will be working on that. And there, it's all taken care of. Andy DeBala, I'm running the boards tonight with Neighborhood News Studio. We appreciate Andy so much. And so here we are. It's been 2 weeks, Mark, and Mark Kulacz is back. And we're so glad to have you back, Mark. It's really nice of you to agree to come back on a more frequent basis, because right now, I think your research, if I had to pick one that I'd say this is the cutting edge, this is where I want to be paying my attention, spending my time following, and that's Mark Kulacz at Housatonic Live and Housatonic Live 2 on YouTube. I am so enthralled with your reporting, Mark, that I'm actually dedicating part of my Screaming Auspice TV channel to your work, and I do appreciate your being kind enough to let me use it. It's a generous thing, and my thought is that it's going to help everyone by sharing not only my material but other stuff from people like yourself that I really admire. So thank you for that, and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me back. It's great to be here. I love you. I love you, to be honest. I love your audience. Yeah, look, the information isn't mine. Yeah, I mean, maybe I've poured a lot of hours into organizing it and collecting it, but it's not ours. Hopefully it'll be there and useful to people for as much time as necessary, right? And it will continue on and continue to be improved upon. So, I feel weird, like you even needed to ask. And hopefully it's honest and correct enough and useful enough that it can be, other people can find value in it, maybe put their concerns at ease a little bit, and it can be improved upon as well. I'm just building upon the work that other people did. And maybe if I do it well enough, someone will build upon the work that I've done and you've done and take it to that other level, or see things which we missed, right? The blind spots.
I love your attitude, and it reflects something that I learned, I guess, quite a few years ago. But until you learn it, you struggle in life with ideas. And here's the basic bottom line: there are no original thoughts. There aren't any. Everything that you can think of has already been thought of somewhere. Somebody has thought it up. And therefore, once you accept that basic premise, then it gets a lot easier. You don't have to worry about, oh my God, I just thought this up and I got to write it down and I got to send it in and make a patent of it and I got to copyright it. And gosh, if I don't do this, then I'll never make that fortune that I'm entitled to. No, I don't think that that's the way to go in this world today, where every patent that could be patented, they've already figured out how to patent it. They have lightning patenting techniques right now, where anything that's smart, they've already got it zapped. They've already got it filed, and you're not going to get any money out of it anyway. But the main thing is that by adopting an attitude of generosity, intellectual generosity, we can solve problems that couldn't be solved with just individual efforts. And that's what I hope to contribute to, as you said so well. So anyway,
on one note though, I only worked in product marketing for about 18 months, maybe 2 years. So I, do what most people do in the corporate world. You oversell yourself a little bit to get to that next level, and then you grow into it, right? That's kind of the way you play that game. So I oversold myself a little bit, and then I had to learn all the marketing lingo because I came out of pre-sales and engineering, and there was a lot of pressure to use the word innovative. And I'm in a tech company, and they just wanted to use the word innovative in every other sentence. And it sounds like an absurd thing, but I never actually thought of what it meant. I always thought it meant inventiveness, like creating something from scratch. And then for the first time in my life, I looked it up, and it basically said taking existing ideas and concepts and finding a new creative way to build on them. It's just an iterative approach. It's just taking all of these things out there and then adding a cleverness to it and efficiency. And it's like, yeah, well, that's mostly what we do. On my little live stream today, we talked a little bit about Led Zeppelin, of all things. Someone in the chat brought it up. It might even be in the chat tonight. I don't know. And I loved Led Zeppelin. I don't know if you're a fan, John, of Led Zeppelin. But they, a lot of their riffs were sort of ripped off from other artists. So on one hand, you could say, well, Led Zeppelin, they stole everything they did, but they did it so much better that many of those originals we wouldn't even know existed if it wasn't for someone figured out that Led Zeppelin had ripped them off, because they improved things. They just did things in a new way and had great musical skills to add to the mix. So again, they're not my favorite group of all time, but I mean, come on, most people like Led Zeppelin. They're a great group to listen to. But again, it's that innovativeness, right? So enough on that. Okay, what's next?
Well, I was just going to say, the thing about the Led Zeppelin was their incredible musicianship too. I mean,
Exactly.
Robert Plant's singing is unbelievable, and the guitarist, well, I can't think of his name, but wow. So yeah, and
you take it to that next level. You do something that
the land of the ice and snow, where the cold winds blow, and something, I don't know, the immigrant song, right?
Yes.
Well, we could talk about that all night, but let's get into some content. I shall offer you the opportunity to introduce the first subject tonight. What you want to start with?
Well, there's a couple of words, as you know, trigger words we can't say, so we have to do a little bit of dancing. We're going to talk about a couple of current events here, because I asked the chat earlier if they had any questions. One of them is our longtime supporter, Kathy Sue, asked about HIV in the current in this virus that people may have heard of, that's been doing this tour of the world. And a lot of the answers to a question like that is usually it's somewhere in the middle. There's a virus isn't just like one type of I would just say molecule. It's a collection of complex nucleic acids and proteins around it, and some of the proteins of this new well-renowned SARS virus have similarities, unique similarities to some of the proteins in HIV. A couple of them, like little subsets. It's unique enough that it would be almost impossible for it to happen randomly. It's something that suggests that there was a human touch, that it didn't just happen coincidentally because of something that happened in a wet market, or something to do with the species under the moonlight. It seems like that's one of those things that's a signature of something that might have come out of research. There is a 1990, I was looking for it right now, I can't find it. It was a 1997 or 1998 New York Times article so this is 23 years ago, John, 23 years ago. And this article, consider where we are on the curve of the AIDS epidemic in the United States at that time. The title of it was, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here because I can't find it, even though I know I have a copy somewhere. HIV could be a blessing because it can be used to cure in the future cancers and other genetic diseases, or something like that. And now, for a country where everyone's just thinking this stuff is the worst virus ever, it's causing people cancers, it's spreading, it's getting the blood supply, that article headline really comes like out in left field. But it shows that at that moment, and probably for several years beforehand, more than a couple people had already seen an opportunity for this virus, for this human immunodeficiency virus. And maybe some of the capabilities of it, maybe some of the proteins of that virus can be repurposed in the future as a therapy, as a way to be able to do gene therapy, perhaps, which could be used to fix cancers, which are genetic problems. and or maybe even to help protect people against other cancers, or I should say other pathogens, by doing something similar to what like the mRNA thing does right now. You know, tell the body to create certain proteins on demand. Now, the SARS 2003 virus. Oh, by the way, okay, so there's a white paper which was contested heavily, no surprise, after COVID-19 started. There were several scientists in India, I believe, that did research, and they were the initial people that found this small subset genetic similarity between SARS-CoV-2 and HIV. Initially, you could imagine the weight of coming out of the United States, you know, and other labs around the world saying that can't be true, knock this stuff down, etc. There was a similar paper for SARS-CoV-1, for SARS 2003. There were also research, which actually has been less contested, that SARS-CoV-1, which was the SARS 2003 breakout, also was a coronavirus that had some proteins in it, which had some signatures similar to HIV. It's almost a repeat in a way. But so they both suggest lab source, and they both, in my opinion, play into this hypothesis that I've been working on, that viruses can be used as a basis, in particular, whatever they discover with HIV, as a way for gene therapy to connect with the human genome of people and to exercise it, cause it to do certain things, and maybe even in some cases go full tilt and make small modifications to it. So there's similarities, but it is by no stretch identical. Okay, I think the similarity is because of this HIV virus could do something. There was some property of it that they wanted to retain, and if my hypothesis is correct, have that continue on with the new whatever it was, SARS coronaviruses. Hopefully that answers the question. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, I think what Kathy Sue is just basically a simple concern, and that is it possible to get HIV? Is it possible to get AIDS from the COVID? And that I think is something that needs to be addressed, and you just did.
There have been instances in Australia, it might have happened elsewhere, where some of the testing, the antibody testing for SARS-CoV-2 the antibodies for SARS-CoV-2 were triggering the tests that were also testing for HIV, possibly because the antibodies which are being created because of the proteins, or the similar proteins, were close enough that the tests for HIV were, in some cases, were falsely triggering as positive, thinking that person may have developed some immunity to HIV, either type 1 or type 2. I forget exactly what what subtypes are. So that, I think, created some panic that it was spreading HIV, but it's not. Nonetheless, it's one more piece of data you can use to suggest that suggests there might have been some scientists involved in the initial spin of this virus.
You mean sitting back behind the bat cave, putting little drops into the bat guano?
I think those are mostly cover stories. I'm starting to see it right now. They emphasize that stuff. I still can't figure out why some of the key scientists of EcoHealth were in China on the week of October 17th, 18th, 19th in the year 2019, when the pandemic supposedly was starting to break out in China. That's the official narrative. And they were actually at a rat farm, collecting rat viruses after they had just spent a couple of days in a cave. And then they tweet about it, John. And I think, okay, so I have some differences of opinion with Peter Daszak and other people in EcoHealth, okay? But I'm not going to say that they're complete idiots, all right? There's difference between saying someone's really corrupt and they're an idiot. They're not. So, but why would you do that if you wanted to keep that a secret? And it actually starts to resonate now with this other idea, and George Webb has mentioned this, that the whole "it came from a cave" thing is sort of like a cover story. It attracts people, right? It's magnetic, and it sort of covers up for the fact that there have probably been genetic experiments where they have taken various types of parts of HIV and been mixing it with all kinds of other viruses in labs, and then doing specific, very targeted modifications to it in the lab to see what happens. And they could make hundreds of thousands, it's millions potentially, of different variants of this thing. I mean, it's just a mathematical idea right there. But you have to explain where it comes from. So you just say, "Oh, we found this in the lab, and we found that in that lab," and those stories sound very plausible. Even though, if you look back in history, there's a long history of people in very unfortunate circumstances who had to work in the guano trade in the 1800s, in the 1800s, and they would go around to islands and shovel the poop from birds for months. And if they got sick, it wasn't because of a virus. It was usually because of dehydration, malnourishment, exhaustion, something of that nature. It usually wasn't because they were catching viruses. They would work for days in poop from these birds or bats or whatever, and they wouldn't get sick. So I think it's all distractions and or misinformation and cover stories to explain why all of these things are appearing. And mostly, I believe it's because it's lab origin.
And isn't it also a big factor money-wise that it has to be a novel coronavirus, one that has not been seen before?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And that, in other words, if it came from a lab, then it's not new because it's been in the lab, right? But if so, they have to say it came from nature in order to qualify for the emergency use application.
Well, that's a good. I see what you're saying there. I would imagine that. Let's just say everyone's above board, and it's purely an accident. Everyone's being totally transparent, and there's some research accident, right? And if many people's lives can be saved, they would probably use the emergency use authorization in that case as well. But that doesn't look good. And I'm not having a hard time believing, considering all the lies that we've seen, that it would be an accident. At some point, it's not an accident. But the novel thing, again, it's about emphasizing that it's not from a lab. It's something that must have come from nature, because if it came from nature, no one's ever seen it before, then clearly it wasn't a lab accident. Can't blame U.S. biolab funding, Chinese biolab funding, that. But the benefit of it having originated in China is that just in case the narrative falls apart, as a backup plan, you can always go, it's the Chinese, and you can point, and that's like the second option down, right? So if you can't convince people that it's nature, you can get a war out of it. That's money. That's profitable.
We certainly have enough people looking for that. That war. That's very, very much on the agenda of a lot of people, and just it's real. I mean, people want to go to war to make money and to fulfill their destiny. There's one of my favorite lines from Bob Marley, who's one of my favorite singers or musicians, a man whose lyrics are worth studying, in my opinion. He says, some say it's all a part of it. We have to fulfill the book. He's referring to the book of Revelation and the idea that, there's horrible stuff going on, but that's part of working through the plan, the great cosmic plan that's going to lead to, Armageddon. And so, Bill Taylor, he talks about these people that are called the Frankist Jews, That's with it. He says, they think the best thing to do is to stand everything on its head and to encourage, licentious behavior, to encourage bad acting in order to bring on the eventual battle between good and evil, and then the new world, the real new world, the new world that's promised to us in the Bible will show up. And I think, if you look at the Dulles brothers, and people that have followed my channel know that they are Calvinists, and they believe in the idea of that all flesh is bad, all material things are evil, and that your only hope is to be saved. But guess what? You're predestined, and there's bad people out there that just need to be shot, that just need to be called. And this is what I think is some of the driving behind the ability of somebody that considers himself to be a scientist to introduce things into the world that are going to definitely kill people, that are definitely going to kill people. How morally do you wrap your mind around doing something that is patently immoral according to any Judeo-Christian standards, or any morality worth studying? And the answer is they have this sense that they have a power to make the future happen faster, to justify the horrible means they're using by saying, look at the great ends we'll have. You'll be happy. You won't own anything, but you won't need to own anything, because you're going to be so happy all the time, and everything's going to be free, and there'll be brotherly love, and everyone will be getting along just fine. All you have to do is help me kill these villagers over here so I can get my pipeline through. God damn it! So let's get these villagers out of the way, and then we can bring on the good old end times. I'm ranting right now, Mark. Excuse me for
That's
that.
okay. No, I
try to wrap my mind around how somebody can do the things that have obviously been done, that have led us to where we're at. An intentional leak, an accidental leak, even just collecting this crap in the first place. And you've studied it. Why did we need a Plum Island lab? Why do we need all these BSL-4 things? It's not a military necessity in my mind. It has something to do with the agenda of these bad thinking people, the people that think that they can improve humanity by culling humanity. I'm sorry, that's just too much philosophy for tonight, but what do you think?
There are books that have been written by some very influential people, which do talk about population controls. It's not conspiracy. How serious they were about it, well, I don't know, but it's we've had several presidents who have been advised by look up a woman named Barbara Marx Hubbard, middle name Marx, last name Hubbard. You can put her on the screen. She passed away a couple of years ago. She was a top advisor to Bush Sr. and I think several other people, very much into the New Age, the occult. I shouldn't say the occult; that word is overused. But this possibilities of this wonderful future where we can cure the illness of aging, where we can understand how the mind works well enough so that we can potentially better connect with each other. Lots of things which they sound on a very high level. It's like, well, gee, that's great. No more suffering and pain and dying and all of that stuff. That's great. Well, then what? I guess. So these ideas, it used to be all but impossible. They were just concepts. Something happened in the last century where some technology was stumbled upon that gave some people the inspiration to start thinking that some of those endpoints, some of those goals might be achievable. with certain levels of research. I don't think anyone has ever really thought about, significantly longer lifespans or the ability to actually have some level of control over our genetic code before. I don't think it's ever really been really considered until the last century. And it was, I believe, stumbled into somewhat accidentally. But once it was discovered, it was unfortunately paired with the Atomic Energy Commission, which, as you know, works as under this level of confidentiality that is unmatched by anything else. Because of what were they doing at the Atomic Energy Commission? Well, one of the things they were doing is testing for what happens to people for radiation exposure, because of whether it be a nuclear reactor leak, atomic weapons, or they just wanted to see what a dirty bomb would do. Well, radioactivity causes cancers. It brings you right into the field of genetic research. And the two were weld back then. Also involved with genetic research is biological weapons. Biological weapons can be weapons of mass destruction. They were explored extensively in World War II. World War I, I'm not a connoisseur on it, but seemed to focus more on chemical weapons. All of that chemical weapon research became more focused on biological weapons in World War II, and many people weren't too psyched about digging into it, but it just never really stopped. It just never really stopped. And the reasons why the United States intelligence officials wanted to pursue it, because we need to know what will happen if this particular type of pathogen, if this anthrax is aerosolized and put onto the cows, we need to know how that would be made so that we can defend against it. Meanwhile, there was almost no other country that was actually able to make the weapon in the first place. So we're actually using the excuse of knowing how to defend against it as cover for, well, we need to figure out how to make it also. So there's several themes there, I know, but you have to understand the funding that was available, the classification levels that were mandated to do this type of research. That there were a lot of well-meaning scientists that were just kind of stumbled into things. There were some vaccination accidents where they learned an awful lot as a consequence of it, and all of these things combine that with a group of atheistic type New Agers that have been wanting to build the kingdom of God on earth or something like that, and that recipe has more or less led to the situation which we're stewing in right now. And we have had a role in it too, embracing modern technology too much and becoming too removed from our own, study of faith and so on. So it's not as if it's just, we're all innocent victims. We have a role to play in this too, which we all need to. I'm becoming very spiritual lately, John. I'm really starting to see how easy it is to become the thing that you're trying to fight against by just focusing on that too much instead of stepping back and realizing it can be a little bit of a trap. So I'm struggling with how to balance that, but that's another thing that has led to this. So it's a constellation of things, and I'm very optimistic about what the possibilities are. I think a lot of wonderful things can come out of this. It's a great opportunity for all of us, but it's also an extremely scary time, especially for people who are so deep in all of the things that they have to do in life that all they can hear is little bits and pieces of this. And, for people just bringing families into the world right now, and you got bills and then you got all this stuff, it's really unfortunate. We have the luxury of actually doing reading and researching and trying to figure some stuff out. Most people don't right now. I mean, it's not free, but most people don't have this type of time.
Absolutely. That's why I'm trying to keep. We got some echo.
Oh, wait.
Sorry. Andy, is there some echo? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Interesting. Oh, Andy wanted to know if you could turn your volume down a little bit. um, your income, your voice, maybe.
How's that?
Um, well, that's now I don't hear you so well. But Andy, can you tell where the echo is coming from? Oh, it's gone now. It's okay. Sorry about that, guys. Just hard for me to talk when I'm hearing myself talking back at myself in my ear. You know how that is. So let's get into one of your really interesting subjects, which is airborne. Um, you um, have reported on the psychological preparation of the people for a problem for diseases or medical things like we're suffering from now through the media and in particular through certain movies. One called Contagion, uh, in particular, had some with some of the great actors of our day in it, talking about it in a way that put the buzzwords in everybody's mind, and one of those buzzwords is airborne. So I have a kind of nuanced question I want to try to float here, if I may. Speaking of floating, when they were talking about anthrax, there was the issue of whether it was airborne. And what they could do with anthrax to make it airborne was to add silica. They had a technique that, with the silica in it, it would basically kind of float. Well, this is the big psychological question for us because if we in our minds believe that a disease is just in the air, it's floating, it's everywhere, it is, quote, airborne, unquote. And that's different from being transmitted by spit or sneezing or within 6 feet of somebody. I'm talking about actually just being there 24/7, nothing you can do about it. That is what that is what makes people agree with politicians that say we have a pandemic. Without airborne, it's kind of hard for us to really think, well, okay, we got some sick people, we got some problems, but you know what? We're really good at containing disease. We can wear masks, we can put them in the hospital if we have to, but it's not going to shut our society down. So the key that I think psychologically, if not, in reality, but I think they really use the media to get us ready to take that step, to go to the point where saying, okay, yes, you can have your, quote, black swan event. That this is like, oh, this is out of control. This is crazy. We never seen this before. It's all crazy. And so it's airborne. Is it?
Yeah, yes, it's very scary.
And
If
well,
that,
question is it airborne? And I think it's not. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think we can maybe pass colds back and forth like flus forever, and maybe we've cut that down by wearing masks. But I do not think that if they were hoping to achieve an airborne pandemic, killer disaster, they didn't achieve it. Now, maybe that wasn't their goal after all. Maybe there was something else that they were trying to do, such as to stimulate fear in us so that we would agree to a certain medical procedure that requires the rolling up of a sleeve and the bending over of your behind. And or wherever you want it, you can take it in the belly if you want. But the idea is everybody in this world is going to get this specific little pointed medical treatment that we won't specifically say the name of because they're scared. And that's not, it's not because it's airborne, it's because everybody's scared shitless.
is everyone scared?
They've been scared. Yeah, they're still
A lot of
scared.
people are scared.
Absolutely, they're scared. They are still scared. Yeah.
So that is, you sort of answered well, first off, the airborne word, it was repeated many times in the movie Contagion. The first time the movie was really emphasized in the movie, that term was really emphasized in the movie, was the movie Outbreak, which was Morgan Freeman and Dustin Hoffman
Oh, that was the
in
one I was thinking of. Sorry.
97, 98. And I mean, it's like the big scene. You know, if you go to YouTube, you want to look at the movie clip, like when Dustin Hoffman says Airborne, that's like the peak of the movie, right? And and then they do the 3D, excuse me, the computer animation, which was 24 years ago, but it still kind of gets the point across, you know, going through the air vents, etc. And that was also based on a book by a fellow named Richard Preston, Preston, who's written several books, like pandemic books. This guy's an interesting dude. He has some intelligence background. He seems oddly connected with a lot of people who are at University of Texas. And I'm not saying he's a bad dude, but then again, he's written an awful lot of books about pandemics, which seem to be precursors to things which ultimately happen. So, you know, he's part of the machine, right? But there's a whole operation about preparing people for what's going to evolve and then what they're going to have to do in response to it. Social distancing, masks, all of these are terms which we were prepped for with Hollywood movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look, pandemic, you know, end of the world movies. It's a guilty pleasure. A lot of people like them. You know, it's always like, gee, imagine, you know, I'm me and only like 3 other people in Massachusetts or survive the disease. What would we do? So there seems to be a big allowance for such movies in Hollywood. Now, first off, we do actually. It's not as, you know, just because there's some air gap between two people, there's an ocean of air which supports a lot of different types of things floating around in it. You know, allergens and different types of some types of viruses which can cling to water particles, etc. There's a lot of things floating around in the air. Fortunately, we have a darn good immune system naturally that protects us, because we are always in this stew of stuff from all these other living organisms, which is being shared. That's the world we live in. So the fact that now something is going to emerge, which we are unprepared for, is kind of preposterous. We've always been prepared for it because that's the world we live in. It's nothing new. The 1918 flu, the research suggests that there were several different things which caused it. Some of it might have been some challenged immune systems from diet and climate at that time, stress from the war, and the fact that so many troops, mostly troops that died in that, by the way, young men, had to be in very close quarters with animals, mules, horses, which were required to move people around in Europe. You didn't load on the Apache helicopter and a Humvee in World War I. You took a whole boat of animals with you. It was very different. And the animals, usually 20 to 25% would die of the flu each crossing. Now, you're telling me with 1918 ventilation technology on boats and people living like this close to all of those animals, that there weren't troops that got sick? Bacteria, it doesn't have to key into people like a virus does. If it finds a healthy lung, it's going to thrive. And a lot of young men died because of that. Instead, they want to push this. I suspect that they want to push a narrative where, oh, it was a virus. It happened because a bird and a pig did this and that in some farm in Canada. Misleading people and continuing to build on the virus narrative.
Yeah, let me stop you there,
Yeah.
because I think it's important. The virus narrative.
Yeah.
Let's start with what you said. It makes a lot of sense that guys would get sick on these boats with these horses and the flu and everything in the air, and they're malnourished and you know, this is fine. But lay over top of that the fact that they were inoculated, right?
Against what, though?
Well, were they inoculated?
They were inoculated against some things. They weren't inoculated against bacterial pneumonia. And to make matters worse, a lot of the inoculations were made from horses.
This is why this is where the complication is that have not other people said that that it may have been the inoculation and not the atmosphere that caused the illness?
It's again, there's a variety of things. Okay, it was there was a huge increase in the use of radio transmissions at that time. There was an unprecedented level of young troops having to be in close quarters with horses. Again, 1918 boats with horrible ventilation systems in the Atlantic. Not exactly, this isn't like in the Bahamas. These are cold, wet climates. There is abundant evidence that many animals were dying at sea. Starting 1914, 1915, it was called the shipping flu. This is one of the reasons why masks worked, because it was so much connected with water droplets. Just because, someone is 50 feet away, you don't need it's different. They're trying to revisit. They're trying to take whatever happened in 1918, which was terrible and impacted a lot of people, and spin it a different way. There were, I think, some inoculations made. They weren't against pneumonia though, which caused some health problems. Some people got really sick after those. So it's a variety of things coming together. And then what they've done, John, is I've been collecting articles from then, and we're getting close to a time when I'm really afraid they're going to start making new fake articles that suggest these articles are also from back then. We have a small window of time to really collect and save and archive stuff, where it went from 5 to 7 million people estimated died worldwide, and then they increased it to like 10 or 11, based upon an estimate that more people died in India than any other country. I don't have any actual evidence to back that up, aside from the fact that there were British troops who died in higher numbers in India because they were on the boats. And then so even the number of 11 million, I suspect, is 5 million too high. And then it kept going up to 18 million, 20 million, 30 million, 50 million. When Fauci's in front of Congress, he says it was 100 million now. They just made up 90 million. That's as many people that died in all of World War II. Just pulled the deaths out of thin air, and that is being used to impact policy. Then they'll say, well, gee, at modern population, that's 200 million people.
This is marketing.
So it's marketing. It's taking a terrible tragedy. A lot of people, young men died. A lot of families lost a young father. It was a terrible thing. Can't we just see it for what it is? It was an accident. I don't think anything was done intentionally. It was a terrible thing. But instead, the worst thing possible is they're making up deaths, and they're not even properly assessing, and acknowledging what did happen.
Let's get back to that question. Virus. Okay.
Yes.
Everybody says influenza is a virus, right?
Oh, it's a great question. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Everybody says influenza is a virus. Now, you just said that they had a bunch of symptoms that they got because they were on the boat with a bunch of horses. But
it would also spread person to person quite easily if someone did have that. It was a very fast, very violent pneumonia. There were, like, for example, there were some barbers that died after they had treated troops who had just gotten off a boat. Again, really close, right? That kind of makes sense. No one's wearing a mask. So it would spread in those cases. It was also why masks worked in hospitals, because the nature of the type of illness that it was.
But it would be just as easily a bacteria to describe, or to say why these people are sick, as to make up the idea that it is a virus. If I'm starting to. Have you looked into Thomas Milton Rivers yet?
No, I don't know that name.
I recommend him to you. I'll do a show on him. He's worth it. He was associated with the Rockefellers and the Navy, and he in fact was the leader of the first naval medical research unit in the South Pacific during World War II. He was down there to help them fight malaria and typhus, that their troops were encountering on the islands. But his last name is Rivers. And but he became the head of one of the Rockefeller Institutes. I can't remember which one, but he's this whole idea of, hey, it's a virus seems to come from him. And then to think about, well, this is all associated with the Rockefellers. And then you realize that Rockefellers are, kind of the front man for the whole elite money Wall Street gang, which really, as you and I have talked about, needs to include the Carnegies and Cold Spring Harbor, which before World War II was eugenics, and after World War II has changed its name to something very happy and wonderful. I can't remember what, but it's about green environment stuff or something. But it's all about how can we control life? How can we control human life? And yeah, it'd be great if they figured out that there's a way to use a virus to get, if there's such a thing, to get into a cell to correct a genetic defect, or to cure a influenza, or to cure somebody that's got cancer, or to reprogram the cells that are causing the cancer to cause them not to cause cancer anymore. The dream is there, but it's one of those justifies the means problems that every medical professional has got to look at. And that is, am I going to participate in violating the Nuremberg Code, in telling people to take shots that I personally don't know what's in them? I haven't done the biology. I don't know how PCR tests prove that somebody is sick. I don't understand any of this stuff, but still, I'm going to tell somebody to put it in their body. Why? Because I hope that someday it'll turn into a boon for humanity. That's a moral question that I think a lot of people are avoiding, and they're not looking at it because, hey, technology, what are you going to do? It's coming. We can't stop it.
I'm doing everything I can as many times as possible in my programs to express how fascinating I think this whole topic is of genetics. I would love to see it funded to the maximum extent possible. I think that there would be millions of people that would sign up if it was just done transparently. Whatever research it is that we're doing. It's almost, but I don't believe that's happening right now. I would like to see as many scientists as possible who have invested their careers and their education on this feel confident that their careers can continue. If a few can just stand up and go, whoa, let's just take a few steps back, all right, and let's start doing this in a more transparent way, as opposed to just throw them all into the fire. Well, I'm trying to avoid that spin. But you if I may, first thing, the virus issue, the virus pneumonia issue. There's a lot of wiggle room there, but when it came to the 1918 Spanish flu, initially it was more or less seen that it was a bacterial pneumonia. That was the initial presentation of it. Virus research was still pretty new. It was a doctor named Robert Shope, S-H-O-P-E. Now, his son was Roger Shope. Sometimes they get Roger Shope and Robert Shope mixed up. You can't imagine why. I'm dyslexic. But one's the father, one was the son. The son was also a very successful doctor in this field. There was some pressure on Robert Shope, who was a doctor, research scientist. I think he did some work at the Rockefeller Institute to dig in and to get more information on what caused that Spanish flu outbreak. One of the uncomfortable realities is that the initial inoculations, they were not against the flu, they were against something else for many of these troops, which were made out of horses, many of which might have been sick, was done by a doctor named Frederick Gates, who was also at the Rockefeller Institute.
This is the guy that was an advisor to Rockefeller, right? To John.
It was actually his son. It was his son. Frederick, I think Taylor Gates. There's one's the father, Frederick Taylor Gates, and the son is Frederick Lamont Gates. Again, I might have those two confused. Mm-hmm. The father, who worked directly with John Rockefeller seemed like he was a pretty good guy. All right, he was a minister. He really pushed Rockefeller to push more and more money into philanthropies, and they had a really good working relationship. He was also very financially savvy. He definitely found some like mining opportunities, but he's a really interesting fellow, this Frederick Taylor Gates. Now, his son, Frederick Lamont Gates, it was only in his 20s, and he was a young scientist. I believe he was with the Rockefeller, and he was out in Fort Riley, which is where they were doing all the surgeon training as well as the equestrian training, the horse riding training in early 1918, and was involved in a lot of the production and the research of the early inoculations, which might have injured a lot of people. He did a lot of notes. They knew that something had gone wrong. Now, certainly, I'm not suggesting that it killed millions of people, but I believe they knew many thousands of people, and maybe many more possibly, could have been injured pretty seriously by some of those early inoculations. So then along comes Robert Shope, and whether it was his idea or not, I don't know. But they said, you know what? It must have been a virus. And they threw this idea on the table that pneumonias must be caused by viruses. Like, so if someone gets a virus, and then somehow the bacteria starts to grow because of it, which no one really thought of it until then. And then more and more money started to be thrown into this bowl of, let's find a way to explain the 1918 Spanish flu with viruses. Oh, maybe it was the pigs. They found some sick pigs in a farm. Oh, and then they did all sorts of virus and vaccine testing, and then that didn't really pan out. So then they mixed some pigs and birds, and they tried all these different things. And eventually,
this sounds very familiar.
They had a scenario. They almost like reverse engineered a way to explain it. And ever since then, the mantra has been viruses cause pneumonias, which eventually lead to bacterial infections. Now, they might. Okay, I'm not a scientist. I can't say definitively for sure, but that whole thought process, it seemed like it came out of several scientists out of the Rockefeller who were in a CYA state after the Spanish flu. And once they found a way to explain it, it has become the rule of law. Don't question the science anymore. We've questioned it enough. We found the answer we wanted. Stop asking more questions. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but damn, that's exactly what, it sounds exactly what the playbook is right now.
Similar in some ways.
Well, my opinion is it's very, very close.
Well, the 18th flu, I think, was genuinely, it was a terrible accident. It was a terrible accident, and probably several things caused it. A lot of people died. Let's just respect it for what it is. I think either they were in CYA because it might have had something to do with the inoculations. I think they might have gotten overzealous of finding, something new to research, which was viruses, right? And then eventually, the testing with viruses got more and more ambitious. And within 10 or 15 years, now they're doing the cancer testing, genetics testing at the Atomic Energy Commission. And then with the bioweapons research, they started doing experiments to see if cancers were transmissible between people. So they would take different cancer cells or viruses, and they would inject it into a monkey, then they would inject it into a person, and back and forth and back and forth. And at some point, they started to stumble into, you know what? I think viruses can cause cancer. And what does that mean? Well, that means viruses are somehow messing with the genome. And now imagine you show up in a meeting, right, at the Atomic Energy Commission where they want to make weapons that can blow away a city, the bioweapons people, and then you have these new agers, and you walk into the meeting and go, you know what? I think viruses can cause and cure cancers. Now you have people's attention. The light bulbs are going off like, wow, what does this mean? And from there, I think we're going to see a whole lot of things that happened in the next 60 years of history just kind of stumbled right out of that little realization. It has had such an impact on computing, foreign policy, mandatory inoculations. John, I know it's a little bit of a tangent here, okay? But one of those little things I stumbled into in my research was a 1994 Procter and Gamble board of directors update. And in 1994, Procter and Gamble board of directors of 10 people included Dick Cheney and Dr. Joshua Lederberg. What are they doing making fabric softeners at that time? Well, I hate to say it, I think one of the biggest things that weakens immune systems is laundry detergents. So you want to make as many people sick as possible. They sign up for as many squirts as possible, which is exactly what all of this stuff seems to be pointing towards. I know it's a lot of stuff. I'm trying to find a way to just kind of simplify it, though, to this concept of this unimaginable temptation that was put into an area of incredible, unlimited secrecy and confidentiality of, wow, we might be able to control life. And then just a lot of things just happened because of that at first seemed completely unrelated. But when you start peeling back the layers, it's like, wow, okay, I can see how maybe all of these seemingly unrelated things might have a connection. And here we are, the era of endless pandemics. Who would have thunk it?
This is why we need spiritual people like you, Mark. You started the show off by saying that you've been exploring your spirituality, and I approve of it, and I appreciate your saying that, and I encourage everyone. I do it every day. I think everyone needs to do this because it is a lack of appreciation of this incredible gift of life that we've been given.
Yes.
It causes people to think that they can actually manipulate it. I mean, come on, you didn't create this. You didn't make this,
Even
so what makes you think that you have the right to come in and mess around with the internal? Well, the thing is that these folks are basically atheists. Or if they're not atheists, they just don't really care. They're just like, I'm not thinking about that. I'm working in my lab and I'm doing my thing, and I'm not thinking about that big picture stuff. Well, think about the big picture. Think about the fact that all of us are mortal, and the things that we do here may have impact upon people far beyond our lifetimes, especially if we screw up real bad. This latest headline I saw this morning, where the president of the United States wants to move forward with giving these medical treatments to children between 5 and 11. It makes me want to puke. I can't say it any more forcefully, or I'd get thrown off of YouTube again. I am absolutely disgusted at this. This is a blatant violation of every medical principle from the beginning of medicine. And people are going along with this because of what? Because of the media, because of fear, because of Dr. Fauci, because of these incredible marketing techniques, marketing ploys that are being played against us constantly. And I'm sorry to say these things at the end of our hour, but and I will give you time to respond. But this is the theme of my day: is that I can't believe that anybody that swore the Hippocratic Oath is now going to go out and do this to children. There's no way that there's informed consent on the part of a 5-year-old. Get out of town.
I'm a bit speechless on the topic, John. There's if what we're hypothesizing here is true, this is kind of like a phase, like a first phase, right? What are they really testing here? look, these are the same money that funds wars is funding this. So it's not really about saving lives. It's about this. The first things first, and that's getting a a delivery platform tested and approved. The delivery platform is the protein shells. The delivery platform is like a virus vector, like what they're doing with Johnson and Johnson. Once you have a delivery platform, it has been stated that Fauci has stated that once you have a delivery platform, you should no longer really need to test future versions of vaccines. That it's just changing the genetic material inside. So this isn't really about coronavirus. This is about collecting the data and convincing people that as much, if not all future medicine, aside from supplements and vitamins, whenever possible, is going to be this type of delivery for everything you can imagine, for cancer, for genetic defects when people are born, whatever that is. That's actually a more and more ambiguous term as time goes on. For mental problems, for Alzheimer's, for bug bites, for viruses, for anything and everything. Everything can be a gene therapy. Everything's going to be more and more and more types of whatever stuffed into these things and provided to people. It could be pills, it could be injections, who knows what.
But you're robbing these children of their natural immune systems. You're robbing them of the ability to live a free life in nature.
I don't think they actually. Well, first off, you're right. I suspect that they will not get as many people to sign up as they want, but they want the data on some children. Mm-hmm. And they actually don't even care who it is. They just want some to go through the testing so they can say, look, it's safe. It's safe. You can't question it. Science is settled. See all these signs? Science is real and science is settled. It's totally safe. And then along comes, all of the other universal medicines. So this is not really about the coronavirus. This is about the platform. The platform is the shells, the RNA, DNA shells. Everything after that is going to be whatever code, genetic materials gets shoehorned into those things, and how that's going to be measured. There's no way they're going to get everyone to sign up. It's just not going to happen. But they just want some children right now to do it, and enough so that they can say there's no reason for anyone to question this going forward. And those parents are offering up their children to a medical test at this point. They are not safer with this. Their natural immunity is radically superior.
Yeah, they don't. Well, all right. I'm not a doctor.
I don't want you to get a strike, but
well, we've already gone there.
Everyone, listen to your doctor and watch the advertisements on TV. They are very truthful. They're all funded by Pfizer. They will not mislead you.
Never. Hey, just in case, I'm going to take a moment and share my screen, because I want everybody to know that Mark has shared some really important videos with us that have been banned by our hosts here at YT. We have found a stealthy way to rebroadcast them over at Screaming Ospreys TV, and I just wanted to show you that while Mark's here. If you don't mind, Mark, I'm going to go over to my
Yep. You can watch them on the stream. If you're indecisive and you don't know what to watch, you can just turn on the stream. You can watch them on demand on BitChute and Odyssey as well, most of them. But sometimes it's hard to know what to watch. You just want to turn on the radio or the TV and you just want to listen to something.
Well, and you're right. And I overspoke there. I forgot that you also had these great videos up on BitChute and Odyssey. So that's of course a great way to see them. But Mark has been kind enough to let me also broadcast some of these that are banned elsewhere. And so I just wanted to show you how to find them. You can go to screamingospreys.com and scroll down to the SOTV view screen, and then we go to Housatonic Select, and
and we'll continue to add more to the audience. We'll add more, and we're still learning this tool. Wow, you can watch me in the past.
So there you are, Mark, and this is how it works. We have 4 channels there. One of them is called Housatonic Select, and it's on all the time. So if you haven't seen all of the Housatonics that have been posted in the last week or two, you can just turn it on and go to Housatonic Select channel on Screaming Ospreys TV. We have 4 channels now. We're looking for some more content, so I'll be probably adding another channel or 2 soon. It's a lot of fun for me, and maybe it's just a vanity project, but it's one that helps me to bring a whole lot of stuff together in one place. So if you get tired of watching Mark, for instance, you could say, "Oh, I'm tired of Mark. I think I want to know what's going on with Mark with Minefield. So let's change the channel and go over there." And there's John. And what's John talking about?
His amazing camera, amazing studio camera. And to the audience, John is paying for this one out of his budget. And so thank you, John. All these channels have incremental costs. So thank you very much. I do appreciate your help on your offer of a channel on this streaming platform.
Great. And yeah, Mark, you've been great tonight. And you know, sorry for the rants, but right now, I tell you, man, it's not right. It's just plain not right.
Stay positive. A lot of stuff's coming to the surface. Look, you're finding new friends, new people. There's a lot of good things happening right here. We have a lot of blessings in our immediate family right now, as crazy and as unprecedented as these times are. So just keep it balanced, everyone. Stay patient, and we're going to get through this together. We're gonna be good.
All right, we're going to be good. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Everyone, take care.